College, good. Yeah, it's working. I think. Yeah. Good afternoon, and welcome to another session of lessons from my mother. We are on lesson number 22. Last week, I had the great pleasure of having one of my lovely friends, Joe Chirampi, on my show, who talked a bit about his mother, shared three of her wonderful lessons, and she's a lovely lady, and I'm sure there are many more lessons for him to share. But before I proceed, I'd like to highlight um, Joe's more of an peaceful, introverted kind of a person. So a lot of people have told me about the volume of his voice in the beginning. But if you just watch the video, it slowly grows. My voice is like this all the time. Every interview I've been invited to, every time I've been invited to speak, I start at this level and it just goes up. But many of my friends start with a hi, yes, how are you? And then the resonance finds itself there. So, for all of you who were having trouble hearing it in the beginning, just wait for a couple of minutes and his voice starts becoming rounder and more complete. So, because people have written to me about it and told me over calls as well. So, I would like to highlight that particularly. I'm still slightly unwell, so pardon my voice. Next week, I will be having another lovely friend of mine in Montreal. She's like a sister to me. I wouldn't say just in Montreal. She's like a sister to me, Reem Ganoom, and we're just trying to iron out the timings and the lighting and the details. But if all things go to plan, hopefully this time next week, not this time, maybe slightly earlier, normal time, next week, I will be interviewing her and hearing a couple of lessons from her mother, who's also a lovely lady. I've met one of Reem's brothers. I'm very close with her husband, who I also call a brother, and she's my sister, and she's also my business partner. So very important in my life, not only here in Montreal, but in my life in general. So that will be happening next week. So please stay tuned because Reem doesn't is not a very typical introvert. She would start with "Hi, hello, how are you? Oh yeah." She's always full of energy and charm and grace. So she'd be fantastic. Uh, Particularly with somebody like that's why we use when we pitch our company, we tend to do quite well, thankfully, because we're both energetic and we bounce off each other and we make each other laugh. So it's a great energy. So that will be happening next week. Reem Ganoom, one of my closest friends and my proverbial sister in Montreal, will be one of my guests. Now, do not binge from the fridge is something that my mum has told us for the longest times. Um, I think it comes from a mentality of growing up in a time where fridge or where refrigerators were not as common as they are today. Now, they're in every middle class and above house, and in many cases, even a lower middle class house can afford a small fridge. But go back to the 50s and 60s in Pakistan, in a middle class house, it's not necessary that a fridge might have been there. So you might say, okay, maybe it is that mentality. But even if it isn't, um, even if she had the fridge, I'm not sure actually whether she had it or not. I haven't discussed this with her. But there's always an emphasis in Pakistan, particularly, but also in Turkey, where I've spent a good amount of my life, on the freshness of food. So when you consume, it's better to consume fresh. Don't refrigerate, store, and eat later. In particularly warm countries, that's a very common concept. To produce and consume at once and then just go. In Northwestern Europe, in Canada, in parts of America, in Scandinavia, colder countries, you used to have a larder, or you had storage spaces where you would stockpile, because if there is a blizzard outside, you can't go outside to acquire food. So you need storage facilities. That has never been the case in warm countries. So the fridge came later where it was necessary to have ice in your Coke, but Coke didn't exist 100 years ago, particularly in those countries. So that could be a source uh, why my mother is against fridge binging, which members of my family do indulge in. I'm not calling out my father because the he's not the repeat offender. That he does it very rarely. There are other members, brothers and cousins and so forth, who do it much more. I've never done it. And I think one of the reasons, I don't know if this would be the case, because in old fridges, the fridge would be at the bottom and the freezer would be at the top. So an average human being would have to bend down to get something out of the fridge. But these new fridge freezers, as you can see behind me in my kitchen, the fridge is at the top and the freezer is at the bottom. So you can open the fridge and just stare at it for 5 minutes or until your bell sounds or the light blinks, and you can just stand and keep looking. Do I feel like a pudding? No, I want a tiramisu. Do I feel like a tiramisu? Do I want a banana? No, I have to peel it. Doing all of that. Maybe I can nibble on some pizza. Maybe I can stick my hand in some other food. So my mother's always been against that. And let me give you some examples before I. No, sorry. Let me tell you what my mum does. Then I'll tell you what some other family members do, and then I'll try to tie into why she's against it. So, I haven't seen my mother ever eat out of the fridge. This is how she eats. So let's say there's a particular yogurt. I forget if it's Turkish or not, but there's a particular yogurt that we used to buy in England, and it was special because it would have a layer of cream on top. That's how it was prepared. And both of my parents would just love it. And as somebody who grew up in the 90s, certainly, I would look at them and like, that's what you're eating? Cream from on top of a yogurt. That's what you enjoy, but that's what they enjoy because when they were younger and as they were growing up, they didn't have a McDonald's, or they didn't have a McFlurry, or they didn't have all these manufactured what not prosthetic, but there's another word for it where it's fabricated in a factory or so forth. They had these natural things, um, yogurt and milk and cream that they would eat. So my mum, it would come in a big container, this yogurt, and she'd take it out of the fridge, close the fridge, set it on table, fetch a bowl, fetch a spoon to deliver into the bowl, and fetch another spoon to eat it with, and she would scrape it gently scrape it, the cream, put it in the bowl, gently scrape the cream, not the whole cream. The container was around this size, I would say, at least 25 to 30 centimeters or 10, 12 inches in diameter. It was a large size. She'd never scrape all of it. She'd scrape like a quarter or maybe maximum a half. And if it's a half, she would save some for my father and mix it with something like almonds or dry fruit. That's what she'd do. And then she'd close the container, open the fridge, put the container back, close the fridge, take the bowl, take the other spoon, put it in the washing, either in the sink or in the dishwasher. Take the small spoon, sit on the table with the mat. If there's TV going on, watch something on the kitchen TV, not the living room. Or if nothing, then she'd sit there and she'd pray, or well, she'd have a conversation and she'd eat it and go. That's what my mum does. And I'd say, Mum, why didn't you eat more of that? She's like, no, this is good. This is good. Everything has its rightful place. There's no point of mixing them. Order is incredibly important. Today, because of our media and because of the 20th century, we balk at the term order. We resist it. Oh, I don't want something to regulate me. I don't want order in my life. But if you speak to somebody who's performing well in life, they'll tell you the importance of having order, regiment, discipline, and so forth. Discipline is just another word for order. So my mum doesn't mix those things, but she also cherishes the activity of sitting at the table, focused on the food, with a spoon, with a bowl, everything proper, and then eating it, enjoying it, full focus. And if she has to carry on a conversation, she'd carry on a conversation. That enjoyment is great. I'll give you another one. My mother's my most favorite human being in the entire world, followed closely by my father, but still she's number one. My father's close by, but even he knows. And I have the great privilege of being my mother's favorite son. That's a privilege I take with incredible seriousness. It defines my life. So because I'm competitive, I have to expand it in this paradigm to continue to create a wider gap in likeness between me and my brothers. I take opportunities to send gifts to my mother. Of course, I do it out of love, but I believe as an instinctive nature, I also do it because I want to compete with my brothers. If my brothers send her a gift, I feel very happy that my brother did something nice for my mother. But inside, there's a part of me that says, I need to send something too. And I do. I do it then, and I'm very competitive, and my brothers know it. Oh, I sent her some flowers, so you had to send her some. Yeah. Yeah. Are you surprised? That's who I am. I'm very competitive. That's a good thing. But at the same time, I do it because I want to make her happy. So I give my mother a lot of chocolates because she loves chocolates, a dark, light milk. She loves all of them, and she stores them. If you give my mother a box of Ferrero, or Ferrero Rocher, as we say here in Montreal, if you give her a box of Ferrero, it wouldn't be opened. It would be that big box. It would be kept securely in one of the storage spaces, which we know where they are, Mum. But they'd be stored there. And then on occasion, when it's time to celebrate, she'd say, why don't you go fetch the Ferrero? And we'd say, yeah. And then she'd open it, and she'd take one for herself. And she'd like, have some. And I would have 5. And she'd just 5? Okay. And then she'd close it, and then she'd tell me to put it back. And then she'd eat on that one, and she wouldn't swallow it. I would throw them in like they're meatballs. No. She would nibble, and then she'd wait, and she'd have a conversation, and she'd savor it. And then she'd take another nibble, and then she'd savor it, and she'd finish it off. That's how my mom eats a Ferrero. It takes her about 5 minutes. But I can eat 3 in like 10 seconds. Most of us can. Then I give my mother a lot of dairy milks, chocolates. And it comes, and she's very happy, and she gives me a hug, blah, blah, blah. And then the dairy milk is in the fridge. And I open the fridge, and I'm like, dairy milk. Oh, it's for you, Mom. It's for Mom. No, can't eat that. And I distract myself. And then after a week or so, I say to my mom, Mom, you haven't tried the dairy milk. Oh, yeah, I'll try it after lunch. And then we have lunch. After that, she'd open the fridge, peel it open, break one part, close the dairy milk, put it back in the fridge, sit, and while speaking to us, she'd eat a dairy milk. One bar, not the full bar, one section of the bar. And she'd eat it, small bites, and she'd really enjoy each bite. And I've asked her, why do you do it this way? And one reason she gives us is, it's because I want to make it last longer, I want to secure it, I want to enjoy it for longer. Then the other is about delayed gratification, about self-control. You know that there's something that you want, but you don't binge, you don't lose yourself in it. But the third is also mostly about savoring the flavor. Savoring the flavor. That this is the chocolate for now. This is it. This is what I'm enjoying right now. Not more, not less. I'm going to enjoy this. If there were 10,000 chocolates in your house right now, they would lose their value. But now, when it's just this tiny thing, you're going to enjoy it. You're going to savor it. She does the same with Tropicana orange juice. That's her favorite juice. We get her Tropicana juice every other time we go buy groceries. And her juice will be the last juice that stays in the fridge. And all of the drinks are finished. If you buy a pack of flavored yogurts from I think I pronounced it incorrectly. If you buy them, they would be done within a day because either I would finish all four or my dad would, or we'd divide them between us. But mum's juice would stay for a month. And gradually it would go bit by bit by bit by bit. And she has moderated her primal instinctive nature, which is to eat. That's the hardest thing to control, isn't it? Your hunger is one of the hardest things to control, not to ignore it. I ignore my hunger many times because I'm busy working and I'm not looking at what's making me hungry. Robert Berry, love you, buddy. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Robert Berry. It's so lovely to see Robert. I hope to have him on my show soon. But that's one reason why her juice lasts long and she savors the flavor. So my elder brother, every time I used to come to England from Turkey, I would bring half a kilo of baklava, which is a very popular Turkish dessert, for my father, not for my brother. I love my brother, but I'd bring them for my father. I tried to ignore mine, but sometimes my stomach growls too loud. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I'm in the same boat. I only forget about it when I'm working. But my mum has regulated her hunger. It's regulated because she doesn't binge. So my elder brother, if we were both visiting England, I brought this half a kilo of baklava for my dad. My dad just had a piece or two because they're very sweet. My elder brother would be walking around the house, open the fridge, take a break, go on. Take another bit, go on. Take another bit, go on. Within a day and a half, he would have eaten maybe 36 pieces of baklava. That's a lot of sweet. My second brother has a big sweet tooth, and he's a sweetie boy, but he has a sweet tooth. He really loves his desserts and his sweets. And he'd finish it off. And my mum would say, why didn't you take 4 pieces, sit at the table, and then eat them one by one and really enjoy them? What is this? You're not working, you're not walking, you're not eating, you're mixing all of them together. What do you do? And he was just like, oh, yeah, whatever. Then my eldest brother, if there's rice, a particular type of rice, biryani in Pakistan, or if there's pizza, or if there's something, he would rather open the fridge and just eat it from there quickly, rather than taking 2 slices, heating them up, sitting down, watch some TV, accompanied with a drink, and have a meal. The goal is to have a proper meal rather than just eating as you go along, unless you ascribe to a snacking policy which is health focused, in which case you're not eating baklavas and pizza in the first place. So my mum would make the case of if you're doing something, do it completely. Like right now, I'm doing a video or a vodcast, as they say. I'm not doing my homework at the same time. I'm not writing a report at the same time. I'm not running my company at the same time. I'm not preparing a speech at the same time. This has my 100% focus. Of course, it's split with, is the sound okay? Is the video okay? Is a text, is a comment okay? That's all part of it. But this deserves my 100% attention. The same happens when I'm writing a report. I'm not watching a video and dancing and on the treadmill all at the same time. I'm focused. This is something that she taught us about. Focused. Try to think about your life and try to consider how many activities do you do which are just those activities. So I have a habit of taking a book or reading or video material when I go to the loo. And I sit and read. That's where I sit and read. Otherwise, it's either on a bus, a plane, or a train. But I read in the loo. It's much better than wasting other time. But there's also something important about focusing on that activity. Ask somebody who's constipated how important it is to go to the loo, and then you'll realize. I make the same argument when people are checking their phone like this and munching from the side. Oh, this is something I have to do. Might as well look at my phone. And my mother never advocates that. One of the reasons why she always focuses on having a dining room, and now we have a dining table where we have dinner, and not in front of the TV, is so you can be thankful for the food that you eat. Be grateful for the food that you eat. That's incredibly important. Robert is saying, that's my favorite place to read. Yep, mine too. Does take a long time there, doesn't it? It eats up a lot of your time. But no, it's privacy. Privacy is very important to me, particularly when I'm doing something important, when I'm reading. But that's one of the places you do it. Um, but the thing my mother has said is be thankful for the food that you've been given, rather than eating on the go or mixing it up. Oh yeah, I was walking. Oh yeah, I'm on the phone. Yeah. Let me grab 5 crackers and eat them. Let me do this and mixing it up. You take your phone call, fully focused. Then when you switch off the phone, go to the kitchen, prepare yourself a plate, sit and eat it. Value the food that you're eating. Pay respects to it. Without it, you can't survive more than a week. Try living without food for 2 days. Try it. I've been there. Try it. Try living without food for a week. You can't. It will dominate everything else in your life. It dominates everything else. If you haven't eaten, the greatest presentation, your most favorite person in the entire world. Let's say it's your dream to meet Barack Obama, or it's your dream to meet. I'm thinking of too many politicians. Let's think of a celebrity. Give me a singer, John Legend. It's your dream to meet John Legend, but you haven't eaten in 5 days. John Legend would be standing right in front of you, and if you see, oh, there's a strawberry behind him, I'm going to go eat that strawberry because I haven't eaten in 5 days. John Legend wouldn't matter. Kofi Annan wouldn't matter. Ban Ki-moon wouldn't matter. Narendra Modi wouldn't matter, because all you care about is satisfying your hunger. So if it's a choice between mixing 10 activities together and not doing any of them completely, or setting aside time to eat, like you set aside time to sleep, like you set aside time to work out, like you set aside time to go to work. Set aside time to eat where you sit and you focus on food. Sure, you can watch something with it. Sure, if you're bored, watch something with it. If you don't have family members around you, because I'm alone here, I don't have family members, so I sit and eat right here where I'm sitting right now. I sit and eat here, and there's proof because I have a tablecloth which I spread out and I eat on it. But I watch something while I eat. That's completely fine. There's nobody stopping you from doing that. The fact of the matter is, you're taking time out and saying, thank you, Lord, for this blessed food and for family, because food has this insane ability of bringing people together. Music, food, and maybe 1 or 2 other things have this insane ability of bringing people together. That's food is central to the hearth, to the family. And it also, my mum always used to love this thing that happened in my father's uncle's house, my granduncle's house, because they would have dinner. He had three daughters. They were all married, obviously, by the time I had grown up. But they would come to visit their parents, and after dinner, the TV was off. They'd have dinner, and while having dinner, they'd be, oh, so what happened? And they'd talk and talk and talk. And we, as the kids, would be running around doing something. And my mum would just sit with them and have dinner. And then after dinner, that I'd either have some mangoes or some dry fruit or something, and they'd continue talking. Because that conversation had started during the meal. And if it were a story, or if it were stories which lead to other stories, they would happen there. And that brings the whole family together. Food is so incredibly important. Why we sit around a fire and tell stories and eat and drink. We've done that for centuries, millennia. We've done that for multiple millennia. Even today, the dining table is an incredibly important table. If your house doesn't have a central dining area where you come together and eat, you need to look into it. And if you eat in bed, that's a bad habit. If you eat while walking, like I sometimes do, that's a bad habit. I've cut it back so much. When I was younger, I would only eat while walking. I'd bite and I'd be on the go all the time, feeling like I'm the busiest person in the world. No, 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 that's inefficient. That is inefficient. Take time to sit and dine. Here in Montreal, we have a very strong um, French lineage, is lineage the right word, influence, where they really savor their food. I love that. I'm the kind of person who would grab a chocolatine or an avalanche chocolat or a croissant and just walk and they'd sit. They'd sit and if not sitting, they'd stand around a table and they'd wrap it in a tissue and they'd eat it and have some coffee and have a pleasant discussion and they'd eat it and then they'd go and get another one. They really value their food. And in Turkey, in Pakistan, food, and in India, food is so central. In China, I remember I've had Sichuan hot pot. In China, I've had a lot of meals in Kunming and Beijing while I was there. It would unite the whole household. It would be the central thing at the restaurant or at the university. It's incredibly important to pay proper respects to your food, but also not to indulge in bad habits of, oh, I'll just have a nibble. No. Give full, complete focus to things that you're doing. If you're going to eat, eat. Make time for yourself to eat. And then you say, no, I can't make time. Well, maybe you should reevaluate your life a little. Maybe you should look at and say, it takes me 15 minutes to eat and maybe half an hour to prepare. So let's say an hour. Why can't I set aside an hour? Maybe I'm working 5 full-time jobs and behind on my mortgage, and I have 17 children who I have to look after, and I have to pay this and pay that and pay this and pay that. Well, you take stock of life, and do you really think those are the best circumstances? I'm not an advocate for somebody who says, oh, life just happened to me. No, these are choices that you make. But now you can make some more. You can say, all right, how old is my oldest child of 17? Well, they're mid-teens. Okay. Well, let's say older because they're 17. Well, they're in their 20s. Okay, maybe they can help me cook. Well, maybe they can do that because I need at least 10 to 15 minutes where I can sit, not check my phone, not even watch TV, sit and really enjoy the meal. Rather than saying, all right, just give me that chicken leg, or you go to sleep, I'm going to clean up while I eat. No. Each and every human being deserves this. And if anybody starts giving me the argument of the lower classes in America, the homeless in America, or Canada or Europe, and how difficult their lives are. Sometimes they don't have time. My friends, I'm from Pakistan. I've lived in Turkey. I've lived in China. I've lived with people who don't have electricity, who don't have water, who don't have gas, who have to borrow everything, who have to borrow clothes, who live in a room. So, with all due respect to economic depravity, I've seen it all. And I've seen those people even come together and say, well, this is all we have. This is why we work. So we can earn enough to buy the food and make the food so that our children can grow and we can stay alive. So that they are strong enough to go to school tomorrow. And then 15 years down the line or 10 years down the line, they don't have to live like this. So that's why we work. I've seen all of that. I've lived with all of that. So if you don't have time to sit and eat, make time. I promise you, it's central. Do not binge at the fridge. You're losing so much more than you're aware of. I would honestly give you this advice. Anyway, I've spoken for too long today, almost half an hour. My apologies for people who might have felt bored. I hope I kept it entertaining and encouraging. Next week, hopefully my friend Reem Gunning will be joining me, and hope to hear wonderful stories from her. And then a week or so after, my best friend, Balu Langa, will also join me. So thank you so much for your time. Have a wonderful week ahead.